quick lesson in fine dust vacuums. Now, this vacuums is one of those areas that people don't really understand, and they don't know what they're buying and what they need, and that's why we're going to go through a quick lesson. And this is an ideal vacuum. The reason why this one's ideal, it is truly a fine dust vac. It's very lightweight and it's super quiet. It's only 67 dB, so it runs just a little bit over what our normal talking tone would be, so it can run in a very nice bass. A lot of vacuums are much higher and have that high vacuum squeal. This one's a fine dust vac, and there's a huge difference between fine dust vacs and just a regular shop vac. It comes from the motors and the filters, and the filters and the filters and the motors. It's the whole package. All those things combined. So here we go. Quick lesson. When you have a vacuum and you're pulling in big particles of debris, it doesn't need much. It's just creating a vacuum. So you just need to create a vacuum. So you have a vacuum motor. But when you're picking up very, very fine particles, you need a high level of filter. And if you have a high level of filter, a very small holes in your filter, it decreases the air. It's like sucking a milkshake with one of those little coffee stirrer straws. It takes a lot of power to draw it up through that straw. So in order to have a fine dust vac, you need a lot of filter area. If you have a small filter, the particle velocity has to be so high to get that much air flowing through it that it'll embed these small particles into that filter and will destroy the filter. But if you can have it so the particles slow down, then you can actually clean the filter. A lot of vacuums have multiple ways of cleaning them. You have shaker mechanisms, you have blasts of air where it suspends the vacuum for a moment and blast of air, and they become very cumbersome and complicated. This one uses a bag, and it has a specially designed interior which allows the flow to go 100% around the bag. And when you do that, then the whole bag becomes a filter, a primary filter. So the filters are your key things to these industrial fine dust vacuums. The other thing is the motor. A lot of vacuums, because they're only pulling in big particles, use what they call a through motor. The air goes through the motor, cools the motor. But this is using what we call a bypass motor. A bypass motor uses external air to cool it, and the air drawing through is separate from that. So the reason why that's critical is fine dust can blind the filters temporarily, and it will overheat a through motor, and you'll see the motors get very, very hot. So it's a more expensive motor, but it's definitely worth it. So the key thing though is your filters and your filter area. First off, this vacuum is a high performer. It's 180 CFM. Keep in mind, there's two ways to measure a vacuum's performance. How much air it moves when there's no restriction. Free air, and that's CFM. So a typical shop vac is around 190 to 100 CFM. Some people measure them in watts. That's like measuring your performance of your car by how much gas it uses. It really is not a good indication. So watts is power, has nothing to do with the flow or how much vacuum suction it can generate. So your two parameters, one is free air, no restriction, CFM, how much air it can move through. And then the other one is 100% restriction, where you put the hose in water and you draw up the water, so there's no air actually flowing through it. It's just pulling the water, and that's your water lift. And this one has 110 water lift. So typical inexpensive vacs, you're talking about 90 and 90 it's pretty typical. So when you talk about high performance vacs, this is 180 and 110. So this gives you a little bit more performance. So this one has some features to it. It has little feet, so you can set it down without getting the motors dirty. Your primary filter is a bag. And this one's beautiful because when you pull the bag off, when you're done with it, you can seal it up and throw it away. This is your primary filter. So every time you replace this bag, you're replacing the filter that's collecting most of the dust. So you're getting a new filter every time, and it's a very clean vac. So this filter filters to 5 microns. Now what a micron is, it's a really small part. It's a way of measuring really small particles. So 5 micron particles are the point of getting to be invisible. So you can take a container filter that can filter 5 microns and it will hold water because the surface tension of water. So anything above that is visible particles. And people who use their filters are down to 5 microns or above 5 microns, it's really not filtering fine dust. Those particles are big, huge particles because you can see them. So they get into your body, you have little hairs and things in your body that catch all those particles and your body has a way of rejecting them. But when you have particles that are sub-micron particles, 1 micron, half a micron, those particles are so small that they get into the airstream, go right into your lungs, and there's no way to get them out of your lungs. Your body has no mechanism to pull them out. So they become part of the airstream going in and out of your lungs. Now the small particles, the beautiful thing is, the small particles, it takes a whole lot of them to mean anything, and that's where OSHA develops standards. They have permissible exposure limit, PEL, and the theory behind that is hopefully you'll die of something else other than the particles getting into your lungs if you stay below those exposures. The reason why I say that is because some vacuums who only filter to 5 microns, what's coming out of the back end of that vacuum is harmful dust to your body, and nobody sees any dust, so they take off their dust mask. So that's where the real danger is. So look for a true fine dust mask. It requires extra filters. This goes to 5 microns. So this is your primary filter, and it's filtering all the big particles of dust. So you put it on this tube, and again, we extend this tube to be longer. So you can see it's an extended longer tube, and we put a little thing at the end so air can come out both sides so it doesn't blast into the filter material. It kind of swirls around inside the bag. And again, the bag has air going all the way around it so it doesn't blind as easy. This is the heart of our vacuum. This filter will filter sub-micron particles, 0.5 and 0.3 micron particles. You'll see after a whole day you might not have any dust on this at all. If a little dust gets through that, sometimes the particles are you can't see them, but what they'll do is they'll stick together. The static charges of particles stick together. You get fine tell, very soft on here of particles after a long day of running. You just wipe this off. The best way to handle this is just put it in a trash bag and just shake it like a tambourine. I call these tambourine filters. I don't know what the official name is. Make sure this thing is here so this doesn't go up against your motors and restrict how much air, because it will restrict how much filtering is really taking place. So that allows you to use the full filter. So this snaps on top, and this goes on top. Now, you can also put a HEPA cartridge on here, and you can sell that separately if you need HEPA. But again, the more you're filtering it, it's like taking that coffee stirrer and making it even smaller and smaller yet. So you want to make sure you have, the filter. You'd rather have more airflow, and then sometimes than maybe filter a little bit more instead of 99.9% of the 0.5 dust particles to go 99.99%. So it's a trade-off when you use that HEPA, but you can use it when it's required or when you need to. Ultimately, this vac is a very sturdy vac. It has a real strong body on it. The body of this vac has a 10-year warranty because it's structural foam. It absorbs impacts. You can hit it, impact it, and it won't damage the body. It won't be like metal vacs that ding and dent, scratch, and look ugly after a while. So this one has a hose. You can unscrew the hose. The important thing about hoses, sometimes the longer your hose is to your machine, sometimes the particles settle in your hose, and you have to walk down your hose to get the dust out of it because it settles and it restricts the air. When this thing restricts the air, you'll hear it'll have, like every vac, it has like a higher pitch. You can hear it, but since it's so quiet, it's hard to see. So some of these vacs have a light on them. You can see this is an earlier model. The newer models actually have a light that indicates that there's a restriction in the airflow, and you can see it from a distance. So, and that allows you to know when to change the filter or when to look at the filters. This vac is very lightweight, very usable, and the filters, we got 2 different qualities of filters, some really nice, expensive filters, for the bags, and the economy ones are really nice. They're still a cloth filter. You just pitch that primary filter every time you're done with the job. Another thing to look at too is your wattage. This one actually will stay on a 15 amp breaker. It's 2400 watts, under full, when it's using full power, but ideally what you want to do, you want a voltage friendly vac. Some vacs use more motors or bigger motors, and then they end up going closer to a 20 amp breaker, so they can be the only thing on that dedicated breaker. So it is a voltage friendly vac, so in that respect. It's easy to service, easy to maintain. It's repairable. All the parts are repairable, and it's, like I said, it's lightweight and it's very easy to use. So it's a quiet vac, lightweight, very powerful, very tough and strong, and those are all the parameters that you're looking for in a small, lightweight vac. But the biggest thing is the price tag. I mean, it is very affordable to compare to comparable vacs in this class.